Hello and welcome to Frank's School. This is the seventh year, the 15th day first video, and I'm speaking from sabbatical. I'm sort of back. I had said when I kind of closed off the, in a sense, closed off the Frank School at the 180th day of the 6th year that I wasn't going to go away, but it was going to be different. I was not going to be so tightly planned. Well, that's what's going on. I've got some things I want to clean up. First of all, I have a second grandson, born Sunday, 2 days ago. Does not yet have a name. So that's pretty big news to me. When I was born, there's a little story I guess I could take the time to share. My father my father ended up with 4 daughters and a son. And my cousins, I had 3 female cousins. So there, of my nieces and nieces, there were 7. I was the only boy. And when Dad got the news that I was born, somebody on the other end of the phone joked with him and said, "It's twin girls." And it didn't leave that long. But eventually then my dad came and erased the whole board, he says, according to the story, and wrote down, "It's a boy." Well, I really hope that idea about boys being so important has changed. I don't know. But in any case, I have a second grandson. All right. Winter. I often think of at the beginning of Richard the Third. It opens with, "Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York." Well, I often think of that phrase, winter of our discontent. Winter is hard. Boy, it's hard. And it's especially hard on a farm. And you know, so this is easy. And as opposed to glorious summer, well, summer has its difficulties too. No doubt about that. But in any case, it is winter in about 2 days or so. It's supposed to be the coldest air we've had in a generation or something like that coming. Wind chills. You know, if you can just snuggle inside your little house, that's one thing. But when you've got all these animals to worry about too, it's hard. But in addition to that, I feel this impatience because I'm still quite healthy. I'm healthier than I've been actually for a while. Although I injure myself all the time. And I would love to get out there and do all this stuff. There's years really probably, but at least an immediate year in front of me of really fun, rough carpentry to be done out there. But working in the snow and the ice, you know, mud isn't much fun either, but in any case, I'm impatient. But, you know, at this winter, at a time like this, the matter is mostly just to survive the winter and make sure your animals do as well. Well, anyway, that's let me go back to the class itself. This is the 15th day. You might ask, well, what happened to the first 14? I did them about a year ago in Portuguese. So if you'd look them up, you'd find me struggling to speak Portuguese because I had resolved that I would tell the story of my imaginary movie, Resurrection, since it didn't seem to have much resonance with English listeners to the extent that I had them, so I thought, well, I'll try it in Portuguese. I can go back to that. I could do that. However, speaking in Portuguese is not easy for me. But if I get enough encouragement, I guess I'll go back to doing that, telling the story in Portuguese of Ressurreição is the way you'd say it in Portuguese. All right, so anyway, this is the 15th day. Hydra's tentacles. I had suggested that all these ideas that I tried to describe that are in my head, they were going to keep putting tentacles out. And those tentacles have touched upon a couple movies. I did talk about Captain Fantastic. It's a dramatic, fictional movie. And in its own way, I was surprised it took me so long for somebody to alert me that the movie existed. The name is very, very deceiving. But anyway, I spoke about that. But I also have run into the movie Reluctant Radical. Once again, nobody really said, "Hey, Frank, there's this movie." Well, I watched it almost immediately. And I can recommend it, but it is not dramatic, it is not fictional. It's about a man's fight, personal fight at great sacrifice against what was happening to the climate. It's absolutely worth watching, but my complaint continues to be it is one thing to fight against things, it's quite another thing to fight or try to build things and make things happen. I had this same dilemma back in the 1960s when the SDS, I think it was called, Students for a Democratic Society, they were so against the war in Vietnam and what was going on at that time. And, you know, it was tempting, so tempting to just come aboard. But I was a builder, I was a maker, not a wrecker. And I'll wreck things, I'll demolish things if it's pretty clear that there's something ready to be there in its place. I understood. They said you got to just destroy it first before you can build it. But I think it's good to have a plan. So anyway, I don't see the plan there, but it certainly is an eloquent statement about a man's brave resistance. He really, in spite of his family and community and stuff. New movie. I think it's 2017. Just this, or might be 2018. I don't know. It's pretty new. All right, the book, The Craftsman. Here's the a tentacle has reached this one too, The Craftsman. And I'll try to be brief about this. The craftsman, it's singular. You might say, why isn't it craftspersons? Well, I don't want to go into that now, but anyway, Richard Sennett wrote it. And throughout this course, over the years, I have again and again come back to the concept of the trades. And now, you know, especially I'm turning toward villagism. And a village had to cover certain trades. Well, anyway, that's what led me to The Craftsman. It's not exactly what I was looking for, but I am learning. It's very historical. It's very philosophical, academic, but it is also about, I mean, the man who wrote it clearly has a lot of knowledge about especially certain trades, so it's fine. But anyway, I ran into the term tacit knowledge. I find that useful. Tacit, when in music, when it says tacit, you don't make a sound. Well, tacit, what he means by that is there's certain knowledge that can't really be explained very well, or if it can, it takes a lot of words that craftsmen have. They just have that tacit knowledge. You don't have to explain it. You just get it from being around it. It's there. You know, a friend of mine said, "Oh, it's like hands-on learning." And I said, "Well, yeah, I think it's related to that." Well, I'll say more about that in a moment. But I also ran into the word embedded, that there's skill and knowledge and habits that it takes a while to embed them into a culture. It doesn't just happen like that. So, you know, this is a new term as well. Well, we're going into a future which is going to have a new culture. And there is no model for where we're headed. The past was different. It was a different situation. It was a different world. We've done our damage to that world. So as we go into this, there's going to be this real lack of tacit knowledge. I mean, it's one thing to buy books and you read books about how do you do this, how do you do that, you know, how do you make leather, how do you weave, and you can learn. I don't mean to say that's a bad thing, but the tacit knowledge is largely not there. And school systems, in my experience, have done very little about that. I mean, their tacit knowledge is stuff that I don't have about how you know, use a cell phone. I always have to stop thinking, how do I work this thing? Well, that's just tacit knowledge to young people. But anyway, I had run into the term lifestyle packages. Like, people have this idea that for their lifestyle you have to have these certain things. It comes as a package. Like, how could I live without coffee? Or, of course, the neighborhood has to have a soccer team. How else could I be a soccer mom? Or whatever, lifestyle packages. And the point that they are going to have to change, no doubt about it. And there's going to be a lot of suffering perceived as suffering on people as they have to change their lifestyle packages. That's a little bit different from the tacit knowledge. A tacit knowledge does not just come instantly. So I'm led to the idea of Admirable Crichtons. This was a play written by the same guy that wrote Peter Pan, written 100 years ago. Admirable Crichton. And we need Admirable Crichtons. And I just use the word figuring, hey, if you look it up, Google it, you'll find out. But in a word, when a rich, privileged family was marooned on a desert island, their butler, Crichton, was the only one who actually had any practical knowledge. Well, we need Admirable Crichtons, and they need to take on apprentices, because as this man argues, it's through apprentices for their 7 years in the old days that they got that tacit knowledge. It wasn't necessarily taught to them word by word, it was just they were around it, and so they got the tacit knowledge. I see that going on in my neighborhood. But anyway, there's a lot of neighborhoods where it's not there. And then finally, I am going to be led, this book has led me in the direction of another book, which I've ordered, don't have it yet, called The Embarrassment of Riches, written by Simon Schama, I think is the way you say his name, about what it was like in Holland when, with the changes in technology, that all of a sudden people could have a lot of things. I'm anxious to see that, and I have no doubt you'll hear once again from Sabbatical. Bye for now.